Welcome to Make It, Share It, the podcast where we explore the simple but profound process to overcome fear, doubt, perfectionism, and more enemies of creativity. Make it and share it.
We'll talk to creators of all kinds, from artists and writers to entrepreneurs and inventors, to learn about their creative process, the challenges they faced, and how they overcame them by making and sharing.
Whether you're an artist, entrepreneur, or someone who wants to create but feels stuck, this podcast is for you. Creativity, meet courage. All right, welcome back to Make It, Share It, where creativity meets courage, and excited to have my friend Stewart Shurtleff join us today, and we'll talk more about his story. But good to see you guys, Lauren and Coop, as always.
Good to see you
Good
too.
to see you.
Yeah, and Stewart, thanks for coming on the show. We'll dive into your story with the turning point, as our audience knows. But at a high level, Stewart is a father and husband, and loves to build things. He loves to make things, right? So I wanted to have him on the show to talk about the types of things he likes to make. And then vocationally with work, he's a lawyer and has been in several different firms over the years, and just recently formed his own with a very good friend of his and his wife. So we're going to talk about making and sharing Rothberg, Shurtleff, and Dang. I don't really know the order of the names.
No, you nailed it. Perfect.
I nailed it. Yes.
Dang has to be at the end.
Yes,
That's
is.
just a guarantee. That is.
Yeah, no,
when I
we've
saw
toyed
that,
around
I
with
was like, that's
Dang.
amazing.
That's right. Yeah, we've toyed around
Dang.
with different ideas just to try to emphasize that. Definitely decided I had to go at the end
Yeah.
for the wow of it.
Uh-huh.
For sure.
I was actually a little disappointed that that's a person and not just y'all's name and then dang.
Dang.
Just an exclamation at the end.
Just like
Yeah, no,
we're
it's actually
thinking
not. Just wanted to let everybody know right now, Crystal Dang's not real. We just made that up so that we can have this conversation right now, Coop. So I appreciate
I think
that.
that's
Good
genius
creativity.
and underutilized in the law profession.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Dang,
making
the
up
word
people.
just dang. Oh, making up
Yeah.
people. That is underutilized.
Making up people
also.
just to
Yeah.
make your name sound like the Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe is the old lawyer joke that I've loved
Oh
forever
my
and ever.
gosh.
But
Yeah.
they need to do that more. That's great.
That's
Yeah,
good.
well, thanks for the input on that. I think we'll get right to work on it.
Mm-hmm.
Reminds me of a lawyer I know named Jimmy. Changed his name to Saul, and quite a story on there, but I'll leave
There
that
you go.
for another day.
Did y'all all watch
Uh,
that? That's great, right?
Oh, I love the show. Yeah.
Yes.
It's one of the few
Um,
lawyer shows Lauren we were talking earlier about too.
Yeah.
But it is Better Call Saul is one of the few like lawyer shows that I don't hate because it's mostly not about lawyering; it's about the shenanigans of it all.
Yeah.
But I can't really watch Law and Order and Suits and stuff like this.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, this is not for real at all.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if it was for real, nobody would watch it. It'd be like, oh, this guy's sending emails for 14 hours a day. That's super interesting. You know, like nobody wants to see that.
No.
Okay, and then I also forgot to mention he's a hooper, so big time basketball player. Stuart and I still have a record for Kirbyville Junior High 7th grade basketball, like post up
Nice.
assist to makes. I was a guard, Stuart was a post, and Coach David Bush let me play one of the last games of the year. Most of the time I was on the bench, but let me play one of the last games of the year and got some assists to Stuart down in the post.
Nice.
And just always remember my glory days of hooping.
I have 3 kids, 16, William, boy 14, Hayes, Stella, baby girl 11. And so last night, I don't know how we got onto it. Sorry, I'm just talking.
That's great.
Last
Yeah.
night we got off onto all the houses I had lived in when I was growing up. I can't even remember how Stella and I were talking about this, but we got to talking about living in Kirbyville. And so I went on Google Maps and like zoomed in because she was asking me about whether 6th grade was in elementary school or not. That's what it was. And so I was like, well, technically Kirbyville was, I think it was under the elementary umbrella, but we had like this little intermediate building. And then I zoomed in, I was like, and this is the junior high. And so then I actually zoomed, I was like, and this is the gym, like where I played my first basketball games with Kent in the 7th grade. And Stella goes, well, were you on the A team? I was like, girl, get out of here. Like you know better than to ask silly questions. Get out of here. So anyway,
Is that when you told her there was
The
only one team in
A-team?
Kirbyville?
I didn't tell her that. I told
I
her,
was gonna
girl,
say.
you know I was on the A team. Don't be silly. That's what I told her.
I was going to say, I can't imagine there were more than one team in Kirbyville.
There
Yeah,
was
no,
only
we were
one.
struggling to put 8 kids on the bench, I think.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Love it.
Okay, so here's my just kind of fun opener question, which is partly based on our conversation yesterday,
Ooh.
which is going back to, I'll give you Nintendo, Genesis, Super Nintendo. Let's go with those three consoles. What if you just only could pick one game from those to play? This is like for the rest of your life that you only get one of them. Which game would it be and why?
Okay, that's interesting. I played a lot of video games when I was a kid. The NES was big. NES, I won't bore you with it, but NES was big. I got really like in a not cool at all way addicted to those like RPG games where they just lasted forever. And then now they've turned into these like massive open play games that I can't even understand. But I think from my perspective, and somebody will disagree, like a NES guy will disagree, but Zelda was like the first of that. Just like you go anywhere, you're kind of choosing your own adventure, so to speak. Remember those books, Choose Your Own Adventure?
Oh,
anyway, so Zelda, I probably would just play Zelda because I feel like there's a lot of expansive nature to it. I wouldn't get super bored with it, and it's still really fun to like get that sword that you can throw and blow those little green guys up. So that's Zelda. That's my answer. Final answer, Zelda.
Zelda. All right.
Remember, it had a gold cartridge too. All the others were gray.
Oh,
The Zelda
that's
cartridge was gold.
Yep.
I don't know how
And
they
there's
got
like
Genesis.
a princess.
Yes.
So I
And
like
like
that.
92 or 93 hockey where you could make their heads bleed when you got into a fight.
Was
The
that
old hockey.
Was it called hockey or was it Blades of Steel? Do you remember that?
No, it was like an NHL. I remember Blades of Steel. But
Okay.
me and my friend, or Madden. I've played Madden probably the most of any game, the longest. That if I had to pick one, it'd be Madden, which is, I've heard, or now they've got the college one back,
Mm-hmm.
the NCAA football. But yeah, I played a lot of those early Nintendo, man. I don't know if there's one like Tecmo Bowl now is just so awful compared to a Madden. But it was awesome. But it's not the one I'd want to play for the rest of my life. I'd be like, oh, I'm Bo Jackson again, and I'm scoring a 100-yard touchdown on every single play. Because as 8-year-olds, we figured it out.
Pre-Madden, there was a game called 10-Yard Fight. Do you remember that one?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I do, yeah. That's a good one, too.
Yeah.
10-Yard Fight. That's a good one.
So yesterday
funny.
were talking about old games, and I found an emulator online, and you could just play all of these old games on your computer. And we probably were getting just killed by viruses. I was like, wait a minute, is all that stuff up to date? Russia has some information about us they didn't have before, but we got to play Top Gun again, and we both were trying to land on the aircraft carrier and still can't do it.
Yeah, failed miserably again. Also, I don't remember it being stick inverted on Top Gun, so I kept like getting confused. I couldn't even. I was like, "Oh gosh, this is."
Are you saying they were inverted?
Yeah. They were inverted.
Yes.
Kent, I have to tell the story because I feel like I just told this story to someone randomly the other day. So we're at Baylor, freshman year. We're in the dorm. Kent's got the 3-person dorm, so the big dorm. And so we would go over there to play, and we would have the Super Nintendo, and we'd play 4 guys playing football. And it was one of these times where we're guys, so we could eat like in college that we could eat like 7 times a day. And we all had the cafeteria card, you know. And it was like 2:45 in the afternoon, and we're like, ooh, Pinland Cafeteria closes in 15. Should we just run down there and load up some to-goes with pizza and corn dogs and whatever they have? And we're like, yes, because we ate 2 hours ago, and that's been too long.
Mm-hmm.
So we all 4 run downstairs, fill up a to-go, 10 minutes tops. We come back up. Nintendo is gone.
Oh,
and now we're like, wait,
no.
what? And now because of who we were and that floor, we all just thought it's a prank.
Yeah.
Someone just, it's a prank. Like any second now, we're going to have someone laughing. Nintendo was never seen ever again.
No.
But the kicker to the story is where we met some guys later that we didn't know how funny they were. 2 or 3 doors down. You know the little whiteboards you have on your door? I mean, Kent had to call, you know, campus security. Hey, there was kind of a break-in. Somebody must have gotten in and out really quickly. It's kind of scary. And these guys 3 doors down just wrote on their whiteboard, Super Nintendo 4 controllers must sell fast.
No.
Good bet.
And we were like,
We need to go hang out with these guys.
It's a
I
good
like
bit.
these guys. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
good
my
bit.
gosh.
I was hoping
That's
that
what I
story
remember.
was going to end in like some magic extra level nobody knew about. It's really just a
No.
tragedy at heart, isn't it?
It was a
Yeah.
tragedy. So when you say
And I
Super
remember
Nintendo, that was a
Commander
bad day.
Doak Walker, I think that was his name. I don't know. It was something like that. That captain of the Baylor Police in his office blamed me. He said, "Are you sure you just didn't like sell it and now you're trying to get insurance money?" And I was like, "Insurance money on a Nintendo? Like, can you just help me?"
I
Easy,
like
Captain. That's
conspiracies.
not a good idea.
Yeah.
I like conspiracies, but that's thin.
Yeah.
That was
Little Baylor
thin.
PD. It's great. Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Speaking of that, turning points. So I say that because Stewart did go to Baylor Law, started at Houston Christian University, and then went to Baylor Law for his law degree. But maybe before then, we just like to ask turning points. You know, like what is maybe a turning point when you look back on your life and you think about, man, this is the man I've become, the roles that I'm in. I look back and I see this as a real pivotal turn in that. What's one that comes to mind for you, Stewart?
You're probably going to think this is hokey, Kent, but because we were texting about it yesterday. But Kent and I were. This is why I thought about it yesterday. Actually, Kent and I were texting about just being kids and stuff. And so, just from a storyline perspective, Kent and I went in and out, but up until the 7th grade together. Let's just say for ease of story purposes. And I left the school in Kirbyville in the 7th grade and went to a new school in the 8th grade. We were in the band together. I played percussion also. And so when I left, the music, I went to another school that had a good band program. And the band director at the time told my mom that like I was never going to make it at the other school at the band. Like I was kind of goof off for his 7th grade. I remember standing in the back and we'd like throw our drumsticks up so they stick in the ceiling. You remember that? And just we look back there and
Yeah.
Dr. M would be like, "All right, it's time for y'all to play." I'm like, it's gonna be tough. My drumsticks are jammed in that drop ceiling. So he rightfully said that, but kind of gave you're not gonna make it over there. And at the time I was, 13 years old. I probably didn't think about it like I do in hindsight, but it was that moment of like, bet. That's what the kids would say these days. Bet. And so when I showed up, I got a new chance to like do it right, and poured in, leaned in, and did. And so Diane Baker was the band director at HJ at the time, and I sort of distinctly remember her like leaning in and encouraging me, like, you can be something great here. And it was one of those times where, not that like I have great parents, like it's not like nobody poured into me or anything, but it was the first like outside influence who was like, no, you can do this. And she encouraged me to like be better at what I was doing. And then she eventually encouraged me to take a leadership role in the band. I was a drum major sounds for a couple of years, which I know sounds super nerdy, but in the context of like an inflection point in your story, that's the point where somebody said like, you can be more than just a dude in the back who bangs on a drum head. Like, I need you to help me lead this. I mean, we had 250 people in the band at the time. I need you to help me lead this. And it was tough love sometimes because I still kind of wanted to goof off. But in terms of like a turning point, I think about that a lot. I think about the influence that Ms. Baker had on all of it, right? Just so many of the things that I do now, some of the things I hate about myself that I do now, I picked up from her because, well, here, I'll give you a good example, but Ms. Baker, she's since passed. She died of cancer a few years back, but she was not trying to think like the nice way to say it. She didn't compete in like swimsuit competitions. You know what I'm saying? And she always said, she's like, I'm not doing things if I'm not going to win them. And she would actually say like, that's why I'm not a swimsuit model. She would say that. And it was funny. Right. And so I picked that up. I was like, man, I don't do stuff unless I win. Well, that's a great like competitive advantage, but also sort of as a hamper. It's been an impediment going forward because it's in some instances it causes me to not participate because I don't believe I can win. Right. So there's pros and cons, but I look back at those moments and I think, no, that like the idea that like I'm going to do it and I'm going to do it to win and I'm going to be excellent at it. I picked that up sitting in the back of the band hall from Ms. Baker. And so there's lots of stuff like this. I'm either all in or all out. She's like, I hate vanilla ice cream. We're chocolate with toppings on top. Like, let's just do it or don't. And so anyway, I say all that to kind of bring us back to the question you asked, Kent, which was like a turning point. It was there, man. It was there. And then that translates to other things I'm doing. Like I think about taking leadership roles on the basketball team and then going to college and doing things that I wouldn't have otherwise done if Miss Baker hadn't have pulled me into her little weird corner office in the band hall one day and said, hey, I want you to be the drum major. I wouldn't have done any of it if it wasn't for her. So that's definitely without a doubt, the pinpoint moment in time for me.
Love that.
Oh, good.
And y'all were military style though, right?
Oh yeah.
Little vanilla.
Yeah.
Oh, now Lauren's
we
all
were
about
too.
it.
Longview High School. I mean, I didn't march in Longview at the high school, but our middle school, I was a majorette and played the flute. And I loved military marching. We aspired to be like the Fighting Texas Aggie marching band. That was like the epitome.
Yeah,
So-
that was us too. We were a hardcore, hardcore military band. In fact, I don't know if this is such a random dig that you'll even remember it, Kent. But our senior year, so Kent was stayed at Kirbyville. They did
Were
not
they a
march
show
military.
band?
A show band, and so your drum line got all the attention.
Yep.
And ours didn't. We just marched in line. But my senior year, we had 5 or 6 guys who could drum a little bit, and they like broke us out to where we had a drum break in the middle of our military style. It was crazy. I can't believe
That's
she let us
cool.
do that, but it was super cool. But we went over to Texas A&M and marched in the NAMBY competition, and there's a picture of me somewhere in the annals of time with my Longhorn leather jacket on, like not like leather sleeves, not leather jacket, but like leather sleeves, cloth body jacket on the on Kyle Field, getting our trophy that year. And I got about halfway down the stands to go get it, and I was like, "Nah, I'm going back. I'm gonna go get." So I went and put my coat on purpose, just to like be that guy. So anyway, yeah, but it was good. It was a good time, man.
So am I the only person on this show that was never in the school band? Because at that
Apparently.
time, junior
I guess.
high, I was trying to put together like Pantera cover band, which went horribly.
Which I was just saying is ironically, it's like you are
That's funny.
maybe
I was
you
never
and Lauren are clearly the musicians, but you
But
might
Cooper
even go
more so.
more so band
Yeah.
heavy than her.
Yes,
I
definitely.
felt like there was never a place for me in the school band. And the first time it popped up even was like jazz band, where they'd be like electric guitar or electric bass.
True.
And I was just like, yeah, but not those songs,
Yeah.
especially at 15 and 16.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, I remember in the early age, even when my friend who was a great drummer in the 4th grade, the only thing we had was orchestra, and he went and picked up cello. And we're listening to Huey Lewis and the News and Def Leppard and John Bon Jovi. And I'm like, cello? Brother, what are you, what?
Brother.
Yeah.
That does not help our band, Praying Mantis,
Praying Mantis.
in elementary school. We don't need a cello player, man. We need someone to figure out keyboards.
Mhm.
So I never, for some reason, my sisters did. My sister went to French horn. They picked these random instruments and just joined the band. But I don't know. There was something about it. I was way more obsessed with electric guitar.
Mhm.
I wanted
is
to be
it
somebody cool.
Hold on a second while I ask the questions. Like, is that because of the structure of like organized band was like disjunctive from like riffing and Pantera? Or is it something about the people in the band that like weren't your people, or what was it?
No, it's more the instrument to choose in the music. It would be like in today's world, I'm like, well, I don't want to learn Uptown Funk on clarinet.
Mm-hmm. I get that.
That's you know what I mean? Like that's where I was like, no, I'm trying to learn that guitar part for Under the Bridge by the Chili Peppers, and it's kicking my butt.
Yeah.
And I have my Guitar World magazine open. So I just never, like, I'd see the band play, and again, I'd see Kevin up there playing a different instrument, and you're like, oh, he's such a good drummer. What are we doing right now in orchestra? I don't know. That's maybe I was already a Gen X jaded musician in the 6th grade too, but I never felt my calling to go there.
Makes sense.
I
Stewart has his own podcast with his friend Kevin Carey. Is that Kevin's last name?
Yeah.
Yeah, 1720. They're the Mountain Movers. It's a great show. Highly recommend it. Go check it out wherever you like podcasts. They interview a lot of leaders and people. I mean, they've had Navy SEALs on and
That's
astronauts
cool.
and
Yeah.
all kinds of crazy people. It's like when I was on, like, what am I? I do not fit with this group of people. But it's
Well, that's
like
not
it's a
true.
good show.
That's not true because our bumper says everybody has a great story needs to be told.
Yep.
Fair enough.
And Ken has great stories and great wisdom around the sharing and making of stories. But
Yeah.
when you said had astronauts on, like Chris Cassidy sat in this chair. If you don't know who Chris Cassidy is, Google him. But long story short, he spent a long time on the International Space Station and was the astronaut that when the Dragon capsule from SpaceX connected with the International Space Station is the first time you had a private entity joining. He was the astronaut that accepted the guys off the Dragon capsule. He was
Wow.
crazy. Former Navy SEAL. Just the craziest story. So he sat right here and told us about being in space for 600 days or something.
That's
Crazy.
wild.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
What's-
a great show. Go ahead,
What's the
Lauren.
significance of 1720?
Matthew 17:20.
Okay, got it.
It's your mustard seed. In quote,
Yeah.
it's your quote. I mean, I could tell you, but that's what a lot of people think about it. But as we were thinking about putting together a podcast, kind of a not even interesting story about how we did it, but Kevin, my co-host, was writing a daily motivational email to a group of just buddies, and it kind of ballooned out a little bit. But he had taken on this sort of moniker for that group of mountain movers, and every email was like, "Good morning, mountain movers." This, and another. So as we were trying to come up with a name, one of our pillars, if you look at like the things that we talk about, one of them is Jesus, and I was like, look, I think we can make a good name parlay into this so that people ask what's 1720. I get to direct you to Matthew 17:20 and talk about it a lot. So that's it.
That's awesome. Love that.
Yeah, I love it. I said
Can't wait
that-
to listen.
Yeah, I said that too because when Stewart wanted to ask Coop a question, kind of natural to say he's in the 1720 studio right now, and so probably easy to take over and be like, "Hey, let me ask you some questions."
Mhm.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Normally I sit over there,
Yeah,
and I do all the asking of the questions.
Uh-huh.
But it's all right. I can answer them sometimes too, and then I
Yeah.
just take over and ask my own dang questions.
yeah. So you did the whole premise of the show is obviously making and sharing, and you have done that with Kevin. You guys have made and shared a great podcast. I want to talk about this journey you've been on as a lawyer, but I know we're not going to get into the weeds of emails and contracts and trials. I'm curious, so basically at a very high level, you were in, I don't know, was it a mid-sized firm for a while when you were kind of first starting out, and then you went to a really large, like huge firm and really were growing into a leadership role there. I mean, you had a leadership role, and I think the CEO wanted even more out of you, right? And I'll let you dig into where you want on this, but just at a very high level, through prayer and with counsel and all those things, you just started to feel a pull not to actually go that direction, even though it was a pretty amazing offer.
Yeah.
It was like, why would you turn this down? But there's some good reasons why you would and did turn it down. And then you went to a construction firm and just were in-house general counsel for this construction firm. And then that had a crazy story, which again, you've even considered making a whole podcast.
Yeah, I'm going to make that and share that.
Because we'll see if we want to go there, but it's a bonker story. And then as that thing was winding down, that business literally, and transferring into another group and all of that, you're like, what do I do next? What happens? And this is what leads you to working with a good friend that goes all the way back to school, with Tim, and then with Ashley as your wife, and you guys formed this new firm. So there's a lot in the overall stories I thought about you. And I love for our audience not always just having like a musician on or a filmmaker, but really having somebody who vocationally has the title of lawyer, now as, a business person running your firm and all of that, to talk about creativity in that space, in those ways. And again, as we talked about, you love to build things. You've always loved to build things. This is just a form of building. So with all that in view, I guess what of that overall arc of your career in terms of making things, like is most interesting for us to dive into? Like, as you hear all that, even just said out loud, where do you feel comfortable about? Because I don't even know some of that podcast stuff. I don't even know if you can talk about that stuff at this point. So
Yeah, I feel like lots of people can tell their story in a linear fashion. It's like X happened and then Y happened and Z happened and I'm here. Um, the I can't even put that narrative together really tightly still, because the last couple 3 years have been, I get whatever analogy, right? The middle of the war, stuck in a forest fire, whatever sort of everything is on fire and falling down around you analogy you want to lay on top of that. Which is just fine. I'm not complaining about it. It is what it is. But I haven't figured out how to just like elevator that story yet. But I think the story arc, and I can only really say it with the benefit of looking backwards, which is a lot of us do, right? Is that I do love to build things. Um, I, when I was on campus at HBU, we didn't have a pre-law society, so I built one. The student senate kind of stunk, so Tim and I, it existed, but Tim and I rebuilt it. Then I got into woodworking. I actually started physically building things, which is super cool. Side quest, don't need to talk about it. But there's just all these. I got into software design for a little while. I built a company that was doing IT services when I was in college. Built it. And I didn't really think about it. I was like, well, I'm just kind of again, back to Miss Baker. She would commonly say, "You're a jack of all trades, but master of none." And I thought of that as like a real, like, I hate it when she says that. Like, it means I'm not good at anything. And I can't remember what the balance of that quote is. But it's actually not a bad thing, right? I'm okay-ish at a lot of stuff, and I like to fiddle and pick at things and learn more stuff and then build something around it. And I've done it over and over and over again. Then I accidentally landed in the practice of construction law. This is actually an interesting story I will tell here, but I accidentally ended up in the practice of construction law, which has a really fantastic intersection with folks who are, guess what, building things. So I get to hang out with people who build things. And then as my career progressed, like, you start as a lawyer, just kind of pushing paper and, punching time clocks. But I realized pretty quickly that as a business person, I can only do what I can do, right? I can't, when you are responsible for building the widget, you can only build as many widgets as you can build. And so I started really investing some time in the idea of building people, and leaning into like the process of mentoring, growing other folks, teaching them what I had learned, both in terms of the positive things that I like. This is how I do it, and I do it like this because of X, and it's a good idea. And also I did that once. Don't do that, and I'll tell you why. And it kind of sounds like I'm telling a parenting overlay at the same time, but it, so younger folks at the office show up and they're adrift. I don't know if it's like that corporately at every place, because I've only really just been a lawyer, but young folks show up, they're adrift. I'm like, I can help us figure out where we're going. I can paint for you a career path. I can show you what your life looks like in 20 years. Come with me. Hey, let's go do this. And I kind of got into the business of building folks, building people, and really learned the value of that, of pouring into others, instead of just like focusing on what's in my own feet. And I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think I've been okay at it. There's a lot of folks in my circle that I fancy friends, that I knew them when they were just trying to figure it all out. And I'm only ahead of you by virtue of birthright. I don't know anything more than you. I just been on Earth 10 years longer, not because I did anything. So I'm happy to share what I know with them and help them move along and with through the process. And so I say that as like I like to build things story arc to get to, when I decided we were starting the firm. It's like, man, I've been through a lot of stuff. I mean, I was at a large national firm. I was at a named partner at a regional firm. I was a chief legal officer of a $600 million construction company here in town. Like, I'd done a couple of things. We're going to go back to zero and start over. And very quickly it was like, yes, because at the end of the day, I like to build stuff. And we've been doing it for about 7 months. It's been like a great joy, and I mean labor of love in the actual labor and the actual love context to be doing it. I get up super early every morning and I work really hard all day long, and I'm completely poured out at the end of every day. And I'm not mad about it at all because we're building something great. And I'm really excited about that. But it's not about the widget. It's not about like what area of law we practice or what building software we use or where we decide to put our desks and work. It's about the people who have trusted us to be the place that they practice law and have trusted us with the idea that we can help them and mold them and share with them what we've learned to create a career trajectory to provide for their families and all of that stuff. And it's not a renewed perspective in this season because I've had it for a while, but it hits a little different. It hits a little different when you start it from zero. So anyway, I think if I had to, again, to thesis statement that I think if you had to lay on top of it an idea, I just really love building stuff. And this is the new adventure of building something, right?
I love the twist on that. What Miss Baker said, that jack of all trades, master of none. But I too have felt that, where I felt like there's a lot of things that I can do and do well, but like there's not one thing that I just nail. I've become a master of, and I've seen it too as a handicap instead of I've learned to see it differently, where it's actually a gift. And I love how what you're doing now has taken all the trades that you've become jacks and building something like it was all kind of part of a design or something. It's
Yeah,
really cool.
it took me a minute, Lauren, to appreciate how all the paths intersect.
Yeah.
But I have a really great appreciation for the fact that it's not my plan. And I get I'm a dude. If you want to like line people up in terms of who the biggest control freak is, you put me at the front of that line. That is like my primary Jesus struggle. Like if we're just going to go there for a say, it's like, no, hold on a minute. I know you got a divine plan and everything, but check me out. I've got a really good idea.
This is great. Yeah.
Like I'm that guy. So it takes that guy a long time to get to the point where you're like, oh yeah, no, I see what you're doing here, man. That's my bad. I should trust more, but eventually you make it to that spot,
Yeah.
And not on your own. I mean, like there's been over that season of, the force is on fire and I'm stuck in the middle. It's not me figuring it out on my own. I guess friends and community group. And I mean, even Kent and I have sat at a Macero 3 times and we're like, hey man, let me just word vomit a bunch of stuff at you and just see what comes out of this. Cause I need somebody to listen to this and just whatever, and so not that this is the angle we were going to go, but just when you find yourself in that spot where you're like, I don't know what in the world is going on, living in that space by yourself is just disaster mission. I tried at first to do that, but eventually I was like, no. I got to get some help. I got to figure this all out. We're going someplace. I'm 45 years old. This is not the end of the road. I got a long road left. And to come back to the jack of all trades, I Googled it because I knew the end of that quote. That quote gets misused.
Yeah.
Crazy misuse. The end of it, it goes, jack of all trades, master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one.
Oh, I've never heard that second part.
Yeah. So the second part, like, again, it gets cheekily used, jack of all trades, master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. So
okay,
there you go.
Who's that quote from?
It just says it's an idiom originated in Elizabethan English.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, generally and originally was intended as a compliment and has been flipped into something that's negative.
It has been.
So there you go.
The hard part for the jack of all trades, because I consider myself one as well, the frustration is sometimes you're searching for a job or a new career. You sit down at the computer to start searching for jobs and you don't have a specialty or something that you've, even lawyer, just like that you don't have something to go, well, I could do a couple of things with law. So I've always been envious of people that have that, like friends that are like, man, he does software design. So you can always know that's what he does, but he's really good at it. He was made for it. But then when you talk to those people, the thing that I always have to remember is like one of my best friends who's in that software world and that's what he does. And that's what he's so geared towards doing. He has no hobbies. And he always is like, man, I wish I had a hobby. I wish there was something I could figure out that I could start tinkering. And I'm always like, I'm the opposite. I have 50,000 hobbies that I love doing all of these weird things and fiddling around. And I don't have the yeah, but I'm certified to do this and somebody would pay me for it. That's what you're always envious of, like that master of one that I've just never had.
Yeah, but there's a benefit to the cross-disciplinary approach to all of it too. I mean, it takes the right person to see that cross-disciplinary. I've got my words all jumbled in my jaw here, but like that person who has a lot of variety and background, how they apply to specifically what you need. Because that to me that tells me two things. One is high when I say figure it outableness. Man, that's a stupid word I made up, but like if I'm interested in a lot of stuff, that tells me that you can figure out a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I can leverage that. Man, I got a zillion hobbies. I can leverage that. Let me show you something new. Come over here. Let me check this out. I can leverage that. And the other thing it tells me is, and this is I love to use sports analogies, but if you have kids and they play a lot of sports, they tell you they can't just play one sport. You get repetitive use injury, right? If you just play basketball, you're going to tear your ACL. And if you just play basketball, you don't always have like a real good sense of the way things could be or the way things could happen. You only see your life through the lens, your sport through the lens of the sport you're playing. Whereas if you play soccer, tennis, and basketball, you're cross-training your body and you see things on the basketball floor differently. You see them like a soccer player would see them. So you see a different angle that a basketball player doesn't see. And so you get not only the like high figure it outableness that comes along with being involved and interested in a lot of things, but you also get that mind of being a cross-trained like mental athlete. I don't know, I'm jumbling my jaw here again, but you get the benefit of that. And so I don't know, I hear what you're saying, Coop. Like my dad, for example, he does AS400 programming, period. Like if it's anything besides that, he don't know what to do. It's easy to search for that job.
I've had a mentor right now that really helped me, and maybe this will help the other guys out there that are in that same kind of world. You nailed it when it's like you have to figure out a way to help other people see you as an asset in your cross-disciplinary approach and your experience being all over the place. And so for me, it was like almost like your elevator pitch. You need a tagline. You have to be able to like really bring that to a concise sentence that's like, Coop is a unicorn that is a musician, songwriter that operates in box 0. And people go, that's not my experience. And then you go, exactly, because, and then you can open up into, well, I have an accounting background, but I have a degree in this and I've done this. If you just start with, hey, I'm kind of good at these 50 things, people can't see it. So you've got to almost pitch yourself as this is what makes me different. This is my strength in like a tagline. And I started doing that for this consulting work I'm doing. And it was a game changer. It's what made people, like if I was batting 1 out of 100 of getting to have conversations or applying for a job and just getting passed over, not even looked at because I didn't have these 3 qualifications that they were looking for. Now I'm like 50 out of 100 where people are listening and going, yeah, I don't need to see a resume. Let's talk about your background more. And so that's what I would encourage people to do. I just did it at 45 too. It's like because the guy was like, you're not a W-2 employee. Stop trying to be one. No one's going to hire you for a job that already exists because you're not good at those jobs. You could do so many more things for this company. And you've got to start pitching yourself that way. And it's been a game changer for me and like really invigorating in these last 6 months of working with people that I feel like I'm actually doing what I was made to do, which is a little bit of everything and a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah. And that's totally cool because somebody, I mean, I think you said you had a buddy who's just in software development and he has no hobbies because my guess is what wakes him up in the morning and like turns his motor over is, I can't wait I paused on that line of code and I can't wait to figure out how to get out of that loop statement, right? He's just 100%. Really excited about that. And to me, I'm like, well, tell me how that loop statement affects this. And have you thought about that? And you get tied up in like the mind mapping of all of the ideation that comes out of me knowing a bunch of different things about a bunch of different things. It takes a village, man. It takes folks who have that neural network to connect all the dots. And then it takes someone to execute the strategy. You need somebody who says, oh, actually, that idea that we put together, that's a great idea. And Coop's buddy can execute it. And off we go to the next things.
Oh, Lauren, were you going to say something?
Another thing that I loved about what you shared was having Kent or someone to just word vomit to you when you're
Oh, yeah.
stuck in a place, or just you've got so many things. More than likely, I mean, Kent is brilliant. Maybe he asked some questions, but really sometimes you just need someone to listen and to kind of bear witness to whatever you're talking through. But usually the solution's there somewhere in it. And just having someone listen, maybe ask a few questions to help you get to clarity is just so helpful. We talk about having guides. What would you call that? If anybody, what would y'all call somebody that, like Kent, what you did for Stewart?
Yeah, I
Do you
think.
have an?
Well, go ahead.
I'll
Go ahead,
jump in
Bessie.
on that because
Yeah,
Kent
go.
Yeah.
and I have done the same thing. Like we met at 18 through just, potluck roommate with someone I knew from Arlington. The Lord put that together, right? And then we figured out real quick, hey, how are we going to tell our parents that we're going to change our major to filmmaking? Because my dad's a CPA, and he's going to be like, are you out of your mind? And so, we've kind of bonded from there and have gone out, and our worlds have just kept coming back together over the last 30 years. So he's just, to me, it's a friend or a confidant that you might not be doing life with every day, but you've got so much, goodwill or time in the trenches over 30 years that if I showed up and I hadn't seen Kent in a year and I word vomit on him, the mess my life is in or the opportunities that are in front of me for my life, he can just listen. He knows me and can just go, sounds like you're saying this. And I was like, that's all I needed. That's all I needed, Kent. Like I knew it. I've even written that down, but I didn't believe it until Kent said it. Now I'm good to go. So I don't know what you call that either, but it's like it's just a trusted friend that has known you for a long time, even if you're not talking every day.
Yeah. I mean, deep inside of our souls, I think we really just have a desire to be fully known, right? And you don't get that by guarding yourself, hiding in the corner, or just, playing double dribble all day. You have to
That would be
invest.
pretty fun, but
Yeah, I can hit that three from the corner still too, by the way. You have to invest in people and the time it takes and the coffees that it is to stop in and say hey, and it becomes a two-way street, because I would have never guessed that all of the relationships that I was pouring into over the time would be the ones that would like slingshot back to help do that. Kent and I were in the 4th grade. I would have never guessed that one day we'd be sitting across this table at a Macero here in town and me word vomiting how crazy everything was, just to see how that hit his ear and his thoughts on stuff. Who would have known, right? Well, go ahead.
I also, in my weird understanding of things, is what I actually would consider a pastor. So not like I've got my MDiv and I work at a church, but like I remember the first time I was in a small oil business that was looking like it was about to get bought by a publicly traded group. All the rumors and all the big dogs at my company were saying, hey, they won't take any of us. You're all about to get laid off. This is about to be a really difficult thing for your life. So I started interviewing with this other group up in New York that was an even bigger, scarier group. And I had this opportunity. My interviews just kept going. They flew me to New York. I passed that interview, and then they were like going to offer me this job. So I went and sat down with one of the elders of the church who happened to be in oil and gas. He also gone to Baylor. I didn't know him. We had never met. It's a big church. And I was literally like, I need to take you to breakfast and word vomit. Like, here's who I am. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what's about to happen. Should I take this job? And to me, the pastoral side of him, he just listened and went, please do not take the job in New York. It will kill you. And I was like, thank you. I needed it to be said. He was like, you only want to take it because you could say I'm a VP here and the money's great. And then your family's going to suffer. And so we didn't know each other, but this pastor who can just listen, a lot of people can't listen to a word vomit, really hear the heart of what you're saying, and then just hit you with the truth from their experience or from what they're hearing and kind of blow you up. So like, he never went to seminary. He didn't work at a church. He volunteered. And so to me, always that guy, those are pastors to me that have made a huge difference in my life. And he nailed it.
Yeah.
And we know each other for like 5 minutes over eggs when he nailed it.
Yeah.
So there's also something there that's people's spiritual gift or something that I've definitely needed and benefited from.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe it is a spiritual gift. I'm not smart enough to speak to that, but it does definitely speaks to the quality of listening, right? Like, I think so many times people get into a conversation, and really what I'm waiting for is for you to stop talking so that I can say what I want to say, as opposed to just not having anything to say and just listening and being still and processing what we're talking about. And I mean, I'm guilty of it sometimes. On the podcast, sometimes Kevin says, I'll tell a story just to tell a story. And I think about it, I'm like, oh man, I hate that. Am I just waiting for you to stop talking so I talk? But in reality, like, I think I am a good listener because it's kind of part of my job, honestly. But it requires you to stop and say, okay, I hear you, Coop, but like, what are you really telling me right now? And I run that through my own, processing units and whatever, and we talk it through. But that listening goes both ways. Like, you need to listen to everybody else, and you also need to be listened to by somebody who can provide that guidance. And so part of not to weave the story back, but just for a minute, but part of the like building into people, I think it is a lot of listening, because I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear like what the stirrings of your heart are. I want to hear what's the most important things to you, so that I can check in, follow up, hold you accountable, cast vision around all those things. And I can't do it if I'm just like word vomiting my important things and my vision on top of you. Like, nobody cares about that. You need to, okay, I hear you, Coop. Let me give you a couple of ideas. There's I like quotes, apparently. There's one that's I have to look it up, but it's something about I don't need to teach you to build a ship. Do you know that one?
I don't think well, maybe when you say the full one, I will.
Let's see. I have to look it up. This is live. We're just Googling it.
Mm-hmm.
Google
It
it.
says, if you want to build a ship, you don't drum up men to gather the wood, divide the work, and give out orders. You teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that. Yeah.
I just have it written on my wall at the office. Like, I don't need to teach you to work on this email. I need to teach you to yearn for the vast and endless sea. And then we go there. And it's part of like it just resonates in my ears all the time. But I say that to draw a line between listening, like to what you were saying, Coop, being able to provide that like on the fly. I don't really know I don't really know you, but I'm listening and trying to discern like the yearnings of your heart so that I can give you that good guidance, so that I can say, hey man, I've known you for 5 minutes. I heard everything you just said, and don't go to New York. And teach you, part of the mentoring process going forward. But anyway, I got a little off in the ditch there. I don't know. I have a tendency to do that.
It's great.
I think it's good. I thought of two movies. Shocker. One of them has been woefully undermentioned on this show, so I'll try to correct that as much as possible. It's Good Will Hunting. Should be pretty much every episode.
Of course.
But
We guard against that, Kip, because it's you and me.
Yeah.
And we would just call this thing Good Will Hunting, make it share it. Yeah.
Just called Share Goodwill Hunting,
Good
period.
Will Hunting, yes. In today's episode. But, to Lauren, to your point, like I'm thinking of, you have Sean, of course, Robin Williams' character is the guide, is the mentor. But you have Chucky, Ben Affleck's character, as Will's friend. And in that case, it is obviously the definition of best friend. And they are very, very connected with each other. But those patterns repeat where so often it's just Chucky listening to Will, until he gets tired of some of his stuff and is like, calls him on it because he knows him. But then I also think about Home Alone 2. Mm-hmm.
Also or 2?
Home Alone 2.
Okay.
So
Still confused. I'm still confused.
Yeah.
Is there a comma or no comma, or is it TOO or TWO? We need to know.
So I think about Good Will Hunting and also the movie Home Alone 2.
Oh, okay.
So in Home Alone 2, Kevin's lost in New York, and the pigeon lady, in Central Park doesn't really know. I don't know. Maybe she's the guide, but it almost feels like the friend he doesn't really know, but he just starts talking to her after he gets over his fear of her. I mean, it happens in Home Alone 1 too with the shovel snow. Yeah, the old man, right? They both kind of represent that. So I think in the movies, in story, they're these characters sometimes that show up, and they're maybe even a mixture of the guide and the friend,
Mm.
and they represent kind of both. But either way, it's some point in that hero's journey where they have to just have somebody who can listen to the word vomit, and may not even know them that well, but is able to say back to them, hey, here's what I heard you say, right? This is what I heard you say. And that's what I think I hear you guys all saying is like, that what they heard back is nothing new. They just listened, synthesized, and then repeated it back. And when we name things, it brings clarity. So I think that's what happens.
I've heard that. I'll give you full credit, Kent, but I think I've heard that before. How like naming things brings the clarity to them. Perhaps from an emotional perspective, like this is blah blah blah. And you're like, that's anger. You're like, oh, well, that's anger. I know how to fix that. I know how to fix blah blah blah, but I know how to fix anger, right? Like or whatever the case may be. I have found a lot of power in like just naming it and then correctly naming it. Right? I'll give you a good example. We're just meandering all over the place. Sorry, guys. I feel like I foreshadowed this. Like I got a lot of words and none of them mean anything. There's a guy in my community group at church. His name's Aaron, and I think like a lot of like younger men. We've been in community with these guys for like 12 years, but in my mid 30s, I was just mad about everything. Right? I think it's kind of like an archetypal. Like dudes are just mad about stuff, and we get together every week or so, and every 2 weeks, I'm like, I'm just mad about everything, right? I'm paraphrasing years of talking about it. And eventually Aaron goes, you're not mad. I was like, oh, yes, I am. Let me tell you how mad I am. He's like, you're not mad. You're frustrated when you lose control. And I was like, ooh, I do not like that at all. I do not like that at all. But the point is, naming it brings clarity to it, but naming it correctly brings clarity to it. Because for years I'd wrestled with the idea that I was just frustrated and mad. And when Aaron said, no, you're a control freak, man. Like, that hurts. It stings a little bit. And then the next week I was like, I think you're right. Like that's why I'm mad. That's the source. That's the name. It's not anger. Don't name it anger. Name it control. And now I have clarity to that. And I could like, once Aaron said it, I can fix it. I know how to solve that. I can feel it coming on more quickly, right? Like now that I know what the name of it is, I can see the markers of it and I can fix it and solve it and adjust and say, I'm sorry sometimes.
It's like getting to the root instead of just like the branches, I guess, where you're trying all the symptoms you're trying to manage because you're just mad. But you're like, oh, actually, it's I want control and I don't have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's I think it's called the book called The 5 Whys, The 5 Layers of Why or something like this. Have y'all ever seen that? Y'all ever read that? That's the gist of it is, I think it's a business management organizational book.
book.
I don't think it is.
5 Whys. I can't remember.
I was doing that like, I'm going to Google it while we're talking about it and I couldn't find it. But yeah, the gist of it is, oh, okay, that's the thing you're talking about. Why are you talking about that? Well, because, okay, great. Why are you talking about that? Oh, okay, great. Why are you talking about that? And then eventually you've gotten to the inside of that onion. If you just keep asking why, and I know that's just sort of a rhetorical technique to.
That makes it. Yeah,
it's
that's
a big
from a
Stanford
Toyota
business school.
Yeah, that's a guy at Toyota that years ago, like in the 60s, he probably got it from someone before him, but he made it popularize the Toyota 5 Whys. As you kept talking about it, that clarified for me what you were saying.
He must have gotten it from his toddler or his little young kid. But why? But why?
Yeah.
The parenting breakdown is eventually the root cause is because I said so.
Yeah.
There you go. Lauren knows.
I'll also say one book that came to mind, I'll put in the show notes, is The Expectation Gap that Steve Cush just released. And so he gets into a lot of this a little bit deeper. Really, it's Bowen systems theory, which is just a deeper psychological framework for families and organizations. Like, how do we start to operate together versus just seeing me as an individual, but what about me at home connecting with my wife, connecting with my kids? Well, all of a sudden we start to have these repeating patterns that emerge, and those patterns come from our families, that we brought into it. So family systems theory is something that Murray Bowen, the psychologist, just began to work through and to synthesize. And write about. But what Steve does is bring a Christian perspective to it and the expectation gap. He also has a book about leadership anxiety, managing leadership anxiety. Can't remember the exact title. It's a great book. Recommend all of that. He also has a great site, stevecusswords.com. I remember it. Sticky.
So great.
So great. So really recommend. He's got a great podcast, all that. But if you're interested in some of this idea about naming things, about checking patterns, repeating patterns, that is a great space to take a deeper dive into. So I'll put that in the show notes.
That's an interesting book. I've seen the management leadership anxiety book. The cover of it's very familiar. This new one I've not seen yet, but it's an interesting idea. The subtext or subtitle is the tiny, vast space between our beliefs and the experience of God.
It's so good.
That's just like in its own right. Like the title itself kind of hits different because I think one of the things we talk about at church, or I hear at church, is like your worldview or your view of God's too small.
Yeah.
Like, and so there's not that gap of awe because my perspective on what a omnipotent, omniscient God does is tiny.
Yeah.
Can't wrestle through that just right quick yet, but yeah, but yes.
Okay, so I know our time is running short. I did want to get to, I think the way the conversation went, just the idea of sharing. Shurtleff, Rothberg, Dang, like what have you guys found in just trying to get the word out, and like what does it look like as you're just, you're getting clients? I know some, you guys have been in the industry for a long time, so you have relationships, but what has that process been like as you're trying to get the word out about what you guys are up to?
So share in that context, I think probably is at least 2, but perhaps 3 different unique connotations, because we are sharing like outwardly, hey, we're a thing and we're doing our thing. So we've honestly, we don't have any creatives. And so the idea of sharing it is like a couple of folks bumbling with a mouse on Canva to try to figure it all out. And we don't know what we're doing. We don't know how to share. There's a quote from, this is like the 900th quote, but from Bezos that just rings in my ears all the time these days about how you need, as an organization, you need to focus on what makes your beer taste better. And you can impute to that whatever you impute to that. But the gist of it is like, I'm not an accountant. So why am I fiddling with our accounting? And I'm not a marketer. So why am I trying to put together images on Canva? Like this is not a good use of my time. What makes our beer taste better, so to speak, is like the being deeply embedded and relationally competent with our clients, answering the phone. That's what makes our beer taste better, not plugging numbers into a spreadsheet. So as in the infancy of trying to resolve some of that, we've been offloading things like this. So in terms of sharing, I don't know, we're going to find somebody to help us do like the outward manifestation of LinkedIn and that sort of sharing. I've been really fortunate. Blessed is probably even the better word, because I spent I had a 596-day sabbatical from the practice of law while I did this Osborne thing. While I was the chief legal officer for a construction company here in town. But when I came back to the private practice, I bring out my old clients and it's like, hey, here's what's going on. And the resounding answer through me sharing that with them, like I'm going back to the private practice law, was like, thank God we've missed you. And that is just like in this stage where I'm leaping off of a cliff, to have those words come back to me is like just such a blessing. And so that sharing in that context of just like, hey, I feel like, was it MJ that just like sent the memo that just says, I'm back, period?
Yeah.
I had my MJ memo where it's like, I'm back. And the reporter showed back up and they were interested again. And that was really, 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 really great. But to me, and it kind of goes into like pouring into people, the things we were talking about earlier is like the share it component of that there is all of us at the firm have this wide and weird and vast array of experiences that we've all messed around in, like there's 7 of us. We've done a lot of stuff over the years. And typically a lawyer gets engaged when there's like an oh crap moment, right? Like, oh crap, we've expended all of our resources to solve, I don't know what to do, let's call somebody. That's when a lawyer gets called. And what I've really been focused on doing these last 7 months is flipping that paradigm and letting me share my experiences with clients early, so that you don't have an oh crap moment. And that shows up in a lot of different ways. It's teaching, mentoring, tutoring, counseling. Just let me come. It's going to cost you X number of dollars per hour, but let me just come sit in your executive meetings, because I'm going to highlight an issue based on my 20 years of experience and seeing all the worst things happen. I'm going to highlight an issue before you even knew it was an issue. I can feel the sand under your saddle. I can feel that burr under your saddle before you even know there's a burr under your saddle. And just let me in one step closer. I'll share with you what I know, and there'll never be a no crap moment. That idea comes together with me saying, like, people, to the point earlier, Cooper, like, what's your kind of elevator pitch? I've been saying lately, I'm doing meaningful work for clients I love working with, and I don't need to do all the legal work. I need to, the desire of my heart and for the firm is to like lean in really hard on folks that we know we can move the needle on, not just be a mercenary and send them a bill that they hate, and to get to a solution that could have been gotten to 2 years ago. That's a waste. So to back to the question, like, that's the primary place that I would say, if what we have done is we've made a firm, what we're doing in terms of sharing is just getting ahead of that curve and telling you that there's a burr under your saddle before you even know it.
It's good.
We need those.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know, we have a few different appointments coming up, so I'm going to end it. We could talk a long time.
I could go on and on.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed hanging out with you guys. It's been super duper.
Likewise.
Yeah, thanks, Stewart. It's really been fun, and hopefully some helpful things just for different parts of our audience I know that listen in different stages of life to pick up from this one. So, like I said, I'll try to go through, do some show notes things. Coop, what you got?
No, sorry.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
He was twirling his pencil, getting ready for his Pantera riff when we cut off here.
Yes.
That's great. All right. Well, hey, thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate your reviews, and just keep leaving those. They're helpful for the show, just to share it, what we're up to. And so I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you on the next episode and make it share it.
You see here, kid? You gotta just go for it. Don't think about what comes after or what came before. You just gotta bend your knees, take a deep breath, and jump. And you might think, what if I fall? Well, what if you don't?